At the beginning of the movie, we see an elegantly dressed young woman walking along the sidewalk, sometimes tapping a little tap dance with her shoes. A car stops next to her, and a stranger offers her a ride, threatening her with a gun. The girl calmly takes her own gun from her purse and ends his life, continuing her way without batting an eye. Only one thing upsets her: a little blood stain on her beautiful dress. Once at home, she talks to her mother on the phone in an elaborate and overly affected style. The girl looks as if she has stepped out of a magazine about the life of American housewives of the past century. Little heeled shoes, a fitted dress, and white gloves. Her signature phrase is, "Bye bye." That's exactly what she says to everyone. The girl's name is Miss Meadows. She's a temporary teacher at a school. On the soles of her shoes, she wears metal taps. Miss Meadows has a heavy past, and from time to time, she sees visions from her childhood, bloody drops falling on her white socks. One day, stopping in the wrong place, she meets the local sheriff, who is charmed by the beauty, though she has some oddities. She is far too old-fashioned and proper. At school, Miss Meadows discusses with the children the illness of the previous teacher. The girl promises the kids that she will definitely recover. She suggests they draw get-well cards for the sick woman. However, when she comes to the clinic with these gifts, she sees that the patient's room is already empty. A couple of days later, the sheriff accidentally drives to the school and brings the teacher a book as a gift. A ride in the policeman's Chevrolet brings them closer. The sheriff takes Miss Meadows to his station. He tells her that someday he will build a house here. The spontaneous Miss Meadows dances on the green lawn to an invisible accordion that the sheriff once dreamed of playing in his youth, and so contagiously that he finally joins her. On the way back in the car, the lovers exchange a kiss. Returning home, the girl discovers that her neighbors are putting bars on their windows. "Aren't you afraid to walk around in such beautiful outfits?" asks the neighbor, and adds that hundreds of former convicts are roaming free. At Sunday service, Miss Meadows and the sheriff meet again. The guy promised his late grandmother he would go to church, and the girl simply loves singing in the choir. The first intimacy between the lovers doesn't go very smoothly, but the girl pleases the man so much that he is ready to put up with any of her quirks. One day at school, she takes her students to release balloons into the sky in memory of the late old teacher. The kids are hungry and want a snack, so Miss Meadows goes to a nearby cafe to buy hot dogs for everyone. But walking inside, she sees a horrifying scene: bloody visitors and staff. And among this nightmare, a man with a shotgun in his hands. He threatens the young woman who just entered, and then she once again pulls her gun from her purse. Now, she is noticeably nervous when she carries out her mission, because she has innocent little children in her care. The girl cannot allow them to suffer. One of the students, the charming curly-haired Heather, with a conspiratorial look, says that she wants to be like her teacher when she grows up, and that she will also have her own secrets. Near the ice cream stand, Miss Meadows, surrounded by her students, meets a suspicious man with a dog on a leash. She forbids the children to touch someone else's dog, to which the man, smirking, says something snide, which the young teacher doesn't like at all. At the sheriff's office, where he works, his name is Mike, colleagues exchange information about a mysterious lone vigilante who kills criminals. There's information that he recently arrived in town from another state. Judging by the portrait made from the words of one of the occasional witnesses, it is a woman, and she looks very much like Miss Meadows. Worried by this information, Mike comes to Miss Meadows and starts questioning her, asking leading questions. It can't be said that this alarms the girl. She behaves as usual and doesn't give herself away. Sheriff Mike tells her about the shooting near the school and the hot dog cafe and asks if she saw anything, but the girl denies it all. Instead, she enthusiastically discusses vanilla ice cream with chocolate and wafer rolls. The girl doesn't like to talk about herself at all. However, she anxiously asks the sheriff about recently released criminals, telling him about the stranger with the dog who hung around the children. Soon, Miss Meadows went to see a gynecologist, and there she learned that she was pregnant. This news brings her delight, but it also adds worries. Can she be a good mother in a world where there is so much evil? The next day, Sheriff Mike brings her the photo portrait of that suspicious guy. This man had served a long sentence for crimes against minors. They talk about the girl's mother, whom she rarely mentions and always pompously, and the sheriff asks what she does in her free time. Suddenly, the girl admits that she bought knitting needles and yarn to knit a blanket for the baby. For their baby. The sheriff is stunned by this news. Right then, he proposes to his beloved. Even though he doesn't have a ring with him, he very much wants to take care of her and of their child. Miss Meadows looks very happy, but with tears in her eyes. It seems she doesn't believe in the possibility of happiness. Yet a few minutes later, she pulls herself together and jokes cheerfully with the sheriff. At home, the girl knits a beautiful lace blanket and again talks on the phone with her mother. This time, the conversation turns to the girl's childhood. She recalls how something terrible happened. Here she is, still a little girl, holding a wedding bouquet stained with blood. Comforting herself, Miss Meadows hums a children's song. Suddenly, she hears barking near her house again, sounding like the dog of that suspicious man. The girl takes a basket and heads to his house, since he moved in right next to her. In the former convict's home, it is messy and unpleasant, and he is very surprised by the visit of his charming neighbor. Miss Meadows begins an educational conversation with this man, assuring him that if he dares disturb the calm and peaceful life of this neighborhood, he will be killed. The ex-con thinks he misheard, and who will kill him? Without batting an eye, the girl replies that it will be her. The new neighbor gets angry. How dare she say such things? Who gave her the right to hand out promises like that to a man who already finds it hard enough to start over? Miss Meadows gets nervous and frowns, but tries not to show it. She gathers her things and leaves. On the street, she is overtaken by nausea. It was a very disgusting courtesy visit. At night, the girl cannot sleep, and she is scared. And even the toy she hugs doesn't help. During class, the gloomy ex-convict neighbor appears near the school again with his dog. Worried, Miss Meadows decides to end the lesson early. One of the students, a boy named William, behaves strangely. He is withdrawn and quiet, and he doubts whether the Bible is right when it says you should turn the other cheek to someone who hits you. The teacher is very troubled by the boy's behavior and the marks of blows on his face. She follows him into the church and, opening the priest's room door, sees Father Peter forcing little William into something indecent, completely inappropriate. Defending the boy, she shoots the Holy Father, who turned out to be a criminal. Coming home, the girl hears a strange noise from the bedroom. Pulling out her pistol, she threatens the stranger who broke into her home. Pointing the weapon, she commands, "Come on, get out of my bed." A piercing squeal is heard, and it turns out to be little Heather, her student. The girl climbed in through the window since Miss Meadows has no bars on her windows. Little Heather admits that she knows the teacher's little secret. She saw how she killed the criminal in the hot dog cafe. In return for promising to keep quiet about this, the girl is allowed to carry flowers at Miss Meadows' wedding ceremony. Hugging little Heather tightly, the teacher mutters desperately, "You're just a little girl. I'm so sorry." Delighted that she will soon carry flowers at the wedding, Heather goes home. Miss Meadows is nervous and calls her mother again. She confesses that she is very afraid and says she is soon getting married, and also that it seems necessary to go to the police. But her mother insists there is no need for that. She must defend herself. And she shouldn't rely on the Lord either, or on anyone at all, except herself. Talking on the phone, Miss Meadows remembers the past. It turns out her mother died, and it was also at a wedding. At someone else's wedding where they came together. It was a terrorist attack. Many people died. Blood on the white roses, tears on the girl's face. Miss Meadows talks to herself. Her mother has long been dead. She died, was buried, laid in a grave. She must let her go, must stop talking to her, because it happens only in her imagination. And now she herself will soon become a mother. She must be strong. The girl cries, clutching the phone receiver in her hand. At the police station, the examination results come in. All the murdered criminals were shot with the same pistol, a .25 caliber. In addition, Father Peter turned out to be a serial criminal who used violence against children. Coming to Miss Meadows, Sheriff Mike asks her if she lost the metal tap from her shoe. Receiving a yes, he hands the girl the find, but it doesn't fit. "Of course it doesn't fit," says the sheriff. Because it's not real. And in fact, nothing is real. Maybe it's time to speak frankly. He knows everything about her, and he is ready for anything, even to cover up her crimes, if she promises to stop her insane activity. The sheriff promises they will have to marry in prison if she doesn't stop. Finally, the girl promises him to try very hard and not to do it anymore. The wedding day arrives. Miss Meadows looks adorable in her perfect lace dress. Little Heather goes into the garden for the last detail of the look, a white rose. But she doesn't return. Apparently, Miss Meadows' mother was right. Picking the last flower is a bad omen. Worried, the bride rushes to the house of her suspicious neighbor. Little Heather is there, tied up. At the church, the students tell the sheriff that Miss Meadows is never late. He gets anxious and drives to her. The criminal threatens the teacher and her student. The girl hits him with the first thing at hand, and the little girl manages to escape. Now, only Miss Meadows remains as a hostage of the scoundrel. The man threatens her with her own pistol, but at the last moment the sheriff arrives and fatally wounds the criminal. Several months pass. The happy couple are now 3. Their baby has already been born. The young mother rocks him in her arms, while the sheriff plays the accordion. Taking off her kitchen apron, the former Miss Meadows goes out for fresh air, tapping her metal shoe taps on the pavement. It seems she has not left her habits in the past. This is the end of the film. Thank you all for watching this video to the end. Give this video a like. Write in the comments what you think about this film, and see you in new videos.